On lab 3 today. There are 4 parts to this lab, and so let's go ahead and get started with this lab. Go ahead and sign in here. Make sure that you're signed in. We're going to go ahead and log in and create a new blank map. This is for lab 3. 3. Go ahead and stick this where it needs to go. It's going to be here. We'll put it in Arc Pro Labs. Hit OK. If you've seen these videos before, you know all this stuff. You'll do this every time you start a new project. And so we've got a new map open here, and we're going to start adding our data that we've already downloaded, right? So we're going to turn off our topographic layer. We're going to add that data. This is usually the way that I add data. In the last lab, we added it through catalog. You can add it through catalog. But the way that I usually do it is I'll go to map here and add data. It's going to ask you the location of your data, right? And remember, we connect to a folder. And I had said that that you should connect to a folder where all of your data is going to be stored. And so I had connected to this labs folder here. So all of my data is, these folders is going to be available here. So this is for lab 3, so we'll click on that. We'll click on data. We'll just click all the way down through it until we see our shape files. We've got 4 shape files here. All you got to do here, you can select them individually, but I usually click on the top one, shift, click this one to select them all. You could select them all. I guess you can't do it like that. So we'll just go ahead and select all of these and hit OK. It's going to add them to the map. And we see that it's in the table of contents here as well. Now, these are all of the roads for Denton right here. We see that this color here represents UNT underscore occupied underscore sites, which is this stuff here. Excuse me. We've got parking spaces that are somewhere on here. We've got building that's somewhere on here, but it's too far zoomed out for us to be able to see all this stuff. There's some information in the instruction about dragging a data set in the catalog window. Our previous lab showed that if you wanted to do that, you would just go into catalog. You go into folders, locate that folder for lab 3. It'd be here. We'd add that folder connection. Labs, lab 3. Hit OK. Data, UNT map. There's our shape files. And you could just select all of these and drag them over into the map. I'm not going to do that because I've already got data on here. But if that's how you wanted to do it, it's a longer way to do it. But if that's how you feel more comfortable adding your data, then you can add it through catalog there. There's no right or wrong way to add data. I just find that for me, using the add data button here is faster than going into catalog, connecting, doing all that stuff. So anyway, we've got our data added to our map here. So we're going to drag UNT occupied sites, which is this green area here. We're going to drag that to the bottom. And so you can see a little bit more on here already. The instruction asks, what will happen if UNT occupied sites is on top of all the other layers? Well, we saw what would happen. It obscures everything underneath it. So just make sure and drag that to the bottom there. It says click the polygon symbol under UNT underscore occupied sites underscore sites, whatever it's called, to open the symbology. So we'll look at the symbology for UNT occupied sites. Click properties here at the top of the pane, and we'll choose leather brown for that, or a color that you desire. So we're going to click on this here. Leather brown should be this one here, right? So we'll click that, and we'll go ahead and hit apply. Sometimes these things aren't written in the instruction. Apply is just generally implied to commit a change. So we'll hit apply here. We'll see that that changes that brown color there. So it says repeat the process for the building and road layers. Choose a color that has sufficient contrast from the background. Your background is called UNT occupied site. So let's figure out something for building here. I'm going to go ahead and scroll in here so I can see these a little better. I don't want that. Cancel. Cancel. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here a little bit so I can see what we're working with. And this is pretty jacked up looking. I'm going to change these roads to, a color. Let's, I don't know, let's change it to, it's too close to the outline color. Let's change it to this and see what happens. That's what, 30% gray, yeah. We'll hit apply. We'll hit apply. There we go. That's not too bad. Go back into our table of contents. We'll change our building colors. UNT is green, so I'm gonna, UNT color is green, so I'm gonna go with like a leaf green. Go ahead, apply and see what happens. Okay, yeah, our building colors are UNT green now, or leaf green. So we've got these re-symbolized now, and it's a little bit better. Number 5 says for the parking space layer, we need to make its symbology more informative. And so we'll assign symbology based on the type field in the parking space. What the heck is the type field? Let's go check it out. So we'll right click on parking space, go to the attribute table. And my attribute table said it's type right here, right? So it's the type of parking space. So this is the classifications: Eagle, service, timed. I guess R is restricted. You've got different types of parking right? So how many different unique values are in type? Well, we can determine that by go here, we right click on this and we'll hit sort, either ascending or descending, doesn't matter. And so that classifies them all together, right? So this is A, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So we see that there's, many different types of parking spaces. And so you can count all these up and figure out how many different parking types there are. Back down. Okay, so number 7 says close the table. The reason that we pulled up our table in the first place is that it's always a good idea to take a look at the data that's contained in your attribute tables. It gives you a good feeling of how to create the best map possible based on the individual attributes, right? So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And we're going to click on symbology. Make sure that this is selected. We'll click on symbology here. We're going to drop down the single symbol to unique values. And so for field 1, remember we said that we wanted to work in the field type, right? So we're going to look for type within field 1. It's right here, so we'll click that. Remember we wanted to uncheck this add all values, so we'll uncheck that. And so now we're going to assign it a color scheme. And these are called color ramps, right here, right? I kind of use color scheme and color ramp interchangeably. So we're going to change this to a color scheme that you prefer. It's kind of hard to describe exactly what sort of color scheme you might want to show here. You can click on show names and we'll see that these all have names, right? And if you click show all, we'll see that there's a bunch of different color schemes. And I'm just going to choose one. Do not copy me. I'm just going to choose one that seems reasonable. Uh, I don't know. I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose blue continuous. Probably not a good choice. Probably not something you want to choose. As a matter of fact, no, I'm not going to choose that one. That's just a bad example. I'm going to choose something that has some variety in it. Um, you'll want to make your own selection for this. Uh, trying to figure out a good one, and this can be something you'll want to spend a little time on trying to figure out what would be a good color scheme. That one. Let's choose. Yeah, I'm going to go continuous here. I'm going to go red, yellow, green. And we can see that it goes in kind of a gradient from green to yellow, or I'm sorry, from red to yellow to green, and that's reflected over here. Um, this is not a good selection because we've already got our buildings in this UNT green, right? So unless you wanted to change the building color, this is not a good selection. You've already got it, since you've already got greens here, these greens over here, for a parking space, somebody may look at it and say, that doesn't look like a parking space. It's not, it's a building. Uh, So you want to differentiate your colors. So don't choose anything that has a green. I may spend a little bit more time on this. What does this look like? No, I don't like that. Uh, how about yellow? No, I don't want yellow, green, blue. Yeah, we'll do yellow, orange, red. How about that? No greens in there at all. This is still a horrible color pick. I mean, these colors right here are not very good looking on this map. You will want to choose something that has a good contrast that contrasts well with your background. You can change the leather brown of this to a color that you like as well. This is all up to you. This is where you start taking a look at your map and you say, man, that looks ugly. I'm going to change its color. And that's what this is all about, is kind of experimenting and seeing what colors contrast with each other. So anyway, now that we've talked about color schemes, we're going to change the outlines around these symbols here, right? The outline on it's pretty much unnecessary. We can look on this and see that it just doesn't look good on our map. So we're going to click on more, and then we'll go to format all symbols, and this is number 9 in the instruction. And so to take all that off, we're just going to click on this and hit no color. And so an outline in theory is still there. It just isn't reflected anymore. It has no color to it. So we'll hit apply. That removes that color there. And then we'll hit this left facing arrow, and we're back to our symbology. And so now we're going to do the fun part, creating a layout. This is where you create your own map for production and for others to use and view. This is going to take up the majority of our time within this lab. Let's go back into our table of contents over here real quick. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit. You would think that you could just make your map from this right here. But creating a layout makes it easier for us to add different elements to our map. And so the differences can be a little confusing at first, but just hang in there and we'll get it, right? And so the instruction says, ArcGIS Pro provides 2 ways to view a map: map view and layout view. This is map view right here. It even says map. The default name for it is map. And map view is what you've worked in up to this point. It's a geographic window for exploring, displaying, and querying the data on your map. In layout view, we're going to create a map or a layout that in which we arrange elements like titles and north arrows and scale bars, and we include our map frame. So, like the instruction says, it says think of map view as a place where you do your mapping work. And layout view is the place where you lay out the graphic elements of your map. It's the presentation of your work. So we can work very easily inside of this. We can do, lay out all these things here. But when this is done, we go to layout view. We present, we start producing our final map, right? All right. So number one says, adding a layout. Ribbon bar, we'll click insert and new layout. And we're going to choose a layout from our selections here. Think of a layout as a sheet of paper, a piece of paper, right? And you've got all sorts of different sizes of paper. You can print your map on here, right? Choosing an orientation takes a little bit of thinking. And I'm going to click on this again. We see that this area here, the stuff that we want to show, is longer than it is tall. So this would correspond better with a landscape orientation. And you can see here that we've got, portrait orientation, we've got landscape orientation, and we've got all these weird ones here that we're just not going to use. I used to work in this, this size all the time. But for the purposes of this instruction, we're just going to work within 8.5 by 11 letter size. And so pick which one you want to use, 8.5 by 11 portrait or landscape. For this one, since we know it's wider than it is tall, we're going to hit landscape. And it's going to open a separate window here. You see that we've got a sheet of paper just like this, right? Nothing's on it. If we wanted to go back to our map and work, we could click this right here. We go back to our layout, right there. Okay, so I'm reading the instruction here. It says from here, we'll click map frame to add our map. And that's this right here, map frame. We're already in insert by default. We're going to click map frame, and then we're going to click this. And you can see that this looks, it's a little thumbnail of our map right here. Don't use default extent. Use this one right here. Don't really worry about what this is called here. I honestly don't know why that's called that. I know it can be changed, but just worry about adding this right here. So we're going to go ahead and click on this. And then we're going to click anywhere within our sheet of paper right here, our layout. And there's our map frame. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and drag it down to here. Just leave it, just as it is. We're going to worry about something else here first. On a side note, you can see in the table of contents here, it's a little bit different than the table of contents we had in our map, right? We've got our map table of contents here, layout table of contents here. See that we've got a map frame here and all the stuff that, this is basically what was under your map frame, map view, right here. So now that we've pointed that out, we're going to look at using guides to align your data and your map elements. So we're going to turn on some page guides. The instruction says page guides are cyan colored lines originating from arrows on the vertical and horizontal layout rulers, that's this stuff here, on the top and left sides of the layout window. These guides help you align and position map frames and elements, but do not appear on the printed map. And it does say that this is the layout frame here. Like I said, this is, just think of it as a sheet of paper. A layout is a sheet of paper you're placing things on. We've got our map frame here, so we're just going to scoot that out of the way for a second. We'll move down to number 3 in the instruction. It says place the mouse pointer over the vertical ruler on the left side of the display at the 2-inch mark. right click and select add guide. So we'll go ahead and right click, add guide, and we see that there is a cyan guide that occurs horizontally all the way across your layout. This doesn't end up printed on the final map, but you can use that to help align some of the elements that we'll place next. If this seems confusing, just bear with me. Number 4 says in the map display area, click the map's frame to select it. It's already selected. Once selected, handles, that's these small square frames, or these small squares around the frame, handles will appear. We'll move the mouse pointer over the frame, and we see that it becomes a four-headed arrow. Here it's the regular black arrow. Here we've got a four-headed arrow. When it becomes a four-headed arrow, use the pointer to drag the frame so its bottom edge snaps to the guides. Snap just means that it fits on there, so that it snaps to the guides at the 2-inch marker on the vertical ruler. Great. Don't use these don't use these handles to do that. You could if you wanted, not a good idea right now. Okay. We're just going to align the bottom edge. Don't worry what this looks like in here. We will get to that. What you need to do is fit your square on here first. And I say square, I mean map frame. Okay, so the next bit of instruction, number 5, says move the frame's edge, left edge, until it is approximately 1/8 of an inch from the side. So you can create a guide. Move it 1/8 of an inch there. You can do the same thing over here. We know that it's 11. We'll add a guide here. Okay. 1/8 of an inch from the left side of the layout. Use create guides for this purpose if necessary. Then click the handle to drag the right side of the map until it is approximately 1/8 of an inch from the right side of the layout page. So we'll click this, drag it over here. Pretty easy, right? Finally, click the upper right handle. That's this. And drag it until the frame's edge is approximately 1/8 of an inch from the top of the layout page. That seems about right. I can see that the guide over here, when I had dragged it up, it's right about at the 1/8 of an inch mark, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so we've got some stuff in our layout. We've got a bigger map that shows a lot of stuff. This is not how it's going to end up, but like I said, bear with me. We'll get to that. It does say in number 6, it says the map frame shows a lot of space that is irrelevant to people who might use the map, and that's true. There's, people want to see the parking spaces, here, right? They don't want to see all this stuff over here. They don't want to see all this stuff over here. They don't want, there's a lot of stuff in here that's you don't need, and that's what you need to remember when you're making your map. You don't want it too far zoomed out. You want to show only what's relevant. It says, ideally, it is better to create focal content here, UNT campus, in the center. This is something you'll want to remember because a lot of people have these issues where they don't know how to zoom in and out of their maps. And there's various ways to be able to do that. I'm about to show you the easiest and most intuitive way. What you need to do is that you can zoom to a layer's extent in your display. And this is super easy. You will use this over and over and over and over again if you remember it. Please remember it. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click the building layer, right? And we're going to hit zoom to layer right here, right? And this is going to zoom to that building layer, right? And so this is going to be zoomed in much closer. The building layer is the extent of what we want to show. So it's going to zoom to that extent. So we're going to hit zoom to layer, and we see that it's zoomed to the buildings layer. I guess what I mean by that is you can see how close, this building here is to its edge. Same thing over here. it's equally spaced on either side. There is some extra space up here, but we're not going to worry about that. Seems pretty good for the time being. Zoom to layer is probably one of the most useful zoom tools in your maps. It allows you to very easily and quickly zoom to the relevant area. So you will want to remember that in the future. Okay, now we learned about zooming to layer. The instruction says your layout page should appear to the following image. Yeah, so this is yeah, our layout here looks pretty much like it does in the instruction. So we'll move on to the section 3 of this lab, adding titles and standard map elements. All maps should include a title, north arrow, scale bar, and legend. All maps should include a title, north arrow, scale bar, and legend. For this course, you're also going to have an authorship block. So you have 5 map elements that you have to add. A title, a north arrow, a scale bar, a legend, and an authorship block. Authorship block is added to this so that we know who submitted your map project. Out in the real world, they're added fairly often, sometimes not. You need to remember all maps should include a title, north arrow, scale bar, and legend. There are exceptions to these, but you won't use any of them for this course. You will score yourself points if you just remember to add a title, north arrow, scale bar, legend, and your authorship block. You will score your point. You will score total points. It's very easy to do. And this is a map creator's rule. This is something I know that I've spent probably a minute or so on this, but you don't know how many maps I come across from other students which lack the basic map essentials: title, north arrow, scale bar, and legend, and an authorship block for this course. You need to include these. If you don't include them, you're just giving away points. Go over your maps at the end and cement these in your brain. Title, north arrow, scale bar, legend, authorship block. They're even listed in the rubric. You must include these. It's important. Okay. So we're going to learn to add these now that I've hammered these home, hopefully, in your brains. Write it on a sheet of paper and stick it next to your computer if you need to. Make sure and add these standard map elements. All right, so we're going to add a title to our map here. And get down off my my speaking block there. Okay, so we're going to add a title. All maps have titles. I should say all good maps have titles. Many have subtitles as well. We are all going to make good maps here, so all of our maps are going to have titles. A good title helps the reader understand what to look for on the map. So on the ribbon bar, we're going to click Insert. That's already selected. And we're going to click the button in the Graphics and Text block that looks like a capital A. That's this thing here, straight text. So we'll go ahead and click it, and then we're just going to click somewhere down in here. You see, we'll get a little text block down here. It just says text. If you noticed, the element appeared over here in your layout, table of contents. And so there's a variety of ways to be able to change this. I'm going to show you, well, we'll just go through the instruction. We'll double click this layer in the table of contents. You could change it by clicking on this, but it's just easier to do it this way. Double click this here, and we'll see that it comes up with format text pane. And actually, this is called an element pane here, but um, this is what your text is going to look like. And here's where we change the text properties. We're going to call this UNT parking map. There. And we need to change the font type and size, I guess. So we're going to click on text symbol, and then we'll go to appearance when it pops up down here. There we go. And we see that it's Tahoma. You can change, your fonts to something more comfortable. I usually just stick with the default. People are familiar and comfortable with these things. This isn't a cartography course, so you don't need, fancy calligraphy or anything like that. Just stick with the basics. Stick with the things that you know. We're going to change the font style to bold. And we're going to change this to 24-point font. That's pretty big, but we don't have much for a title. So you can see that you get a preview of it right here. We're going to hit apply. And we see that it makes it, pretty big. And so we're just going to kind of move this out of the way. I'm going to move this over here, this out of the way. Click back on this. And then we will, if you cannot move this for some reason, just click on layout and select, and use that select tool to move your stuff around. But usually you can move it around pretty easily. So go back in the table of contents here, and we're going to add trying to see what we're going to add next here. Map elements like the north arrow and the scale bar and the legend provide useful information to the readers about your map. The north arrow provides an indication of true north. A note about your north arrows: they should not be overwhelmingly large. What do I mean by that? They shouldn't take up a quarter of your page. They shouldn't take up an eighth of your page. Your north arrow should not be something that someone looks at as the first thing that someone sees on your page, or the second thing. It's only there to provide a reference to north. That way the person can look at it and say, okay, this way is oriented north. I can travel in this direction and go, whichever way I need to go. It should not be a major element of your map. You don't need to resize it and make them enormous. They should not be one of the main parts of your map. The next part talks about scale. Hopefully you know what a scale bar is. It just shows the distance on your map. Now these elements are associated with the map frame that's active when they're inserted. That means this over here. The map frame is active over here. Okay. I know this is not the greatest of explanations, but bear with me. What that means is when this map frame is active over here, and you will have more than one map frame sometimes. When you create a graphic element for it, it's for that active frame. If I had another one here, if I had another map frame, it would not be the active one. If I wanted to make a legend, north arrow, and scale bar for a map frame, I would activate this map frame, then start inserting everything. This will make sense later, I promise. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to get in more creation. Let's add a north arrow. We're going to, in the instruction for number 1, it's an insert north arrow. There's a variety of north arrows you can use. Keep it simple. Don't start using this one here, with the crazy, northwest, southeast calligraphy stuff. This is not cartography. This is not a cartography course. Cartography course is the pleasing aesthetic aspects of a map. Keep it basic and simple. Like I said, people are only going to look at your map. They're not going to look at the aesthetics of your map and say, wow, this is a beautiful map. They're going to look at the north arrow and say, okay, this is north. This is a point of contention that I have with a lot of students. They want to use the north arrows that are, crazy and weird and used for cartography. You don't really need to do that. This is not a cartography course. No one's going to be wowed by the fact that you can add a pretty north arrow to your map. Having said all that, those north arrows all have their places and purposes, but not for this course. So we're going to choose a north arrow. You're probably not going to get points counted off if you use. I don't grade your papers for this semester, so you're probably not going to get points counted off for using a crazy north arrow. Keep it simple. I almost always choose this one. It's a very simple. Unless I have a dark background, then I'll use this one. I just use this one right here. You can't go wrong with it. Okay? A lot of students will come down here and start using some of this weird stuff down here. Keep it simple. Earn your points by doing a very simple thing and just selecting the first one. Click it. Add it to the map. That's all you need to do. It doesn't need to be this large. It doesn't need to be this large. Go ahead and undo those sizes there. This is plenty large enough for your map. Doesn't need to be any larger than this. You could if you wanted, and I'm not going to tell you absolutely don't do it. But I'm as somebody who has worked in creating maps for almost a decade and a half. Keep your north arrows simple for this stuff. Anyway, this is like I've said, this is a point of contention that I have with many, 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 many students. There's always one who wants to use the crazy arrows, and it just makes their map worse. Keep it simple. Okay, so we've got our north arrow added here. We're just going to drag it up here to the top left corner. You can stick it. Yeah, that's fine right there. In an unobtrusive area. Like I said, your north arrow is not a feature of your map. People just want to know which way is north. That shows them which way is north. The function is performed. All right, so now we're going to go to add a scale bar. I'm going to go to insert and then scale bar. This can be another point of contention as well. A lot of people will use some weird scale bars or whatever. I usually just keep it simple. This one, occasionally I'll use this one. Occasionally I'll use this one. It just kind of depends on what I see that I like. Your step scale line is kind of weird. Hollow scale is kind of weird. This one is okay, I guess. But for most purposes, I will either use this one or these two. And so for this one, we're going to use scale line 1. We click it, and we see that our cursor turns into a crosshairs there. Just going to click anywhere on it. We see that we have a scale bar that gets added. We're going to work on this scale bar a little bit. Hold on just 1 second because I'm trying to catch up in the, okay, here we go. I was trying to catch up in the instruction. You can double click your scale here to pull up the properties, or you can double click it over here. So we're going to change a couple of these properties. You don't have to do this every single time, but this is a good way of showing you how your scale bars can be uh, best created. So we're going to click on this, the properties deal here. It looks like a scale bar, and we're going to change the fitting strategy to adjust width. And what that means is it's just a means of adjusting the width whenever you, if you need to resize it, it'll adjust the width. Not that big of a deal to worry about. Um, but yeah, you know, it'll, if you change the scale here, the width will change. Um, but again, not too big of a deal because you can actually adjust its size by clicking on it and then dragging the sides. But let's continue on. We're going to change the division value. We're going to change that. We see that it's by 0.035 right here. We're going to change that to 0.5 and the number of divisions to 1. And we see how that changed it within here. Now this right here represents 0.05 miles. You can change your number of subdivisions. You know, you got 1, 2, 4, corresponds with that 4 right there. But you don't have to. That's just something to remember in the future. We're going to look for, in the numbers section here, we're going to look for symbol here. And we're going to click on this button here. We're going to change the font size. So we're going to change that font size to 14. And then click apply. I don't particularly like that, but it shows you a way that you can adjust your font size in your scale bar. You may like that if you like. These scale bars are up to you to create. And I'll just leave that at that. Okay, so we hit apply. We're going to click the scale bar. We're going to drag it down here and kind of lower right in. And we clicked off of it, so we see that it's highlighted. We'll go back into our table of contents here. We've already got it added here. Something you need to consider is the best unit to use for your miles. And actually, we'll go back into that element and go into those properties. You've got different map units that you can use here. And you can actually, like, let's go ahead and change this right here to 14. So now our map, our scale bar font for miles equals this miles here. And so something you want to consider is the unit measurement that you want to use for your scale bar. They come in many different types, feet, kilometers, you know, you can see them all right here. Miles is best to use here because we can see that, you know, the map coverage is best for miles. But for something that's, you know, a map that shows a very zoomed in view, you'll probably want to use something more like feet, because if you use miles, then you're going to be talking about, you know, very weird fractions of a mile in your scale bar. So, I think that's about it for adding that. We're getting closer to the end here. Bear with me. Next, we're going to add a legend. Again, we're going to go to Insert, Legend. As usual, it changed over to the crossbars here, and we've got something funky that shows up right here. Don't worry about that. We'll always fix this stuff. You'll see in the when we clicked on that, we went to Format Legend, and if that doesn't show up, just click on Element down here, or you can double click inside of this, and the legend pane should show up. What we're going to do is we're going to change this title here. We want the title to read, hold on. we want the title to read parking permit types. Let's see. I'm trying to follow along in the instruction here. So number 3, it says near the top of the legend pane, click the drop down arrow here, pick the title. And this is where we're going to change the properties of that title. So we're going to change its font size to, got 18 there. We'll change it to 16. Go ahead and click apply for that. Sorry for that pause there. My mouse stopped working for a second. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on. We just changed the properties for the legend. We went into title. This was at 16, right? We click apply. Number 4 says click the back button at the top left. Click the back button. Under legend items, click show properties. That's this right here. Click show properties. Under the show section, we're going to make sure that layer name, we're going to uncheck layer name. There we go. And then we're going to ensure that heading is unchecked. Okay. It's grayed out, so I'm not sure that we can uncheck that. Group layer name is unchecked, so we're good there. Number 5 says click the second button next to the top of the legend frame. Let's go back to here. That's this one here. Legend adjustment options. We're going to change the number of columns to 4. So click that. That gives us 4 columns there to be able to fit across our map here. Next, we'll change the order item in the table of contents. The road, building, and the UNT occupied sites layers are separate layers. The parking permits, so we'll group them separately. So we'll go back into the table of contents and drag the building layer under parking space. That's where we have it. We're going to take parking space and move it up. So we have our, there we go. Now we've got building, road, UNT occupied sites. These 3 are separate layers, outside of this one and don't really refer to much of anything. And if you notice, when I'm moving these around over here, like I'm going to move building above road here, building will be moved above road in our legend. Now building is above road. And we've got all of this grouped together. And then we've got this grouped together. So we've got our parking grouped right here. And then this is grouped right here. And so what we're going to do from here, we're going to control click on building, road, and UNT occupied sites. We'll right click, right, keep in single column. That's going to ensure that these stay in their column. And you can see that this is checked like that. These are kept in a single column. Moving along, we'll go on to number 7. We're going to remove this type from the legend here. In the table of contents, under map, frame, parking space, okay, this is a little bit difficult to find. We're going to, like I said, we're going to remove type from the legend, but we're going to remove it from this section here, right? What's reflected here will also reflect in the legend. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on type once. It's called slow clicking. We're going to click on this once, wait, and then click it again, right? And we can edit type that way. This allows you to change how headings read. We don't need type on here. We're going to go ahead and delete that. Press enter. And that removed type from here. I'm reading the instruction here, and it says ensure that you are changing the text in the map frame section. Map frame section, not the legend section. Okay, next we'll make the font sizes for the layers uniform. They all look pretty uniform to me, but this is how it's done. In the table of contents, we're going to double click the legend. And the legend pane, we're going to click the drop down arrow right here, and we're going to labels. We're going to just change this to 12 and hit apply. That makes the labels a little larger. I was just sitting here wondering why my title wasn't showing up here for parking permit types. You need to click show. It's big as daylight right here for show. So we're going to click on show here. Hey, look, it says parking permit types. And if you wanted to change that, you could go into title, change the appearance. I'm going to change that to bold because I think I'm going to like it as bold. Hit apply. Yeah, we'll keep it like that, I guess. You don't have to put it as bold if you don't want to. As a matter of fact, let's see what the instruction has for us. Yeah, the instructions got it in bold, so I'm going to keep mine like that. Okay, so for number 10, it says the text for UNT_occupied sites is difficult to read for regular map users. That refers to this here. No one writes like this. People will record data using underscores, but no one writes using underscores. And reasonably expects people to be able to read what's there. You always need to remove these underscores. You need to make these things as easy to read as possible. And I'm going to say this probably 50 times, and there's always going to be a few people who don't go back and remove the underscores, or they won't insert spaces where spaces need to be. These need to be clean and professional looking. Removing your underscores and adding spaces is going to make your map legend easier to read. There are very easy points that you can miss just by a couple of seconds of taking out an underscore and putting in a space between words. So how we're going to do this is we're going to go into the table of contents. We're going to look under the map section here. Yeah, I guess I can't do it here. We're going to go in the map section here, and we're just going to slow click on this. Well, let's see how the instruction has to do it. Right click and then go to properties. So you could do it like that. You can go to right click properties here. Take out the underscores, put in the space, click OK. We see that took out the underscores there, and it reflects over here. There's various ways to be able to change that. I just showed you 2 ways. Let's go ahead and hit save here, make sure our work is saved. We're nearing the end. Bear with me. It says you're almost finished adding the necessary map elements to the parking map. This will get easier and less time consuming as you become more comfortable using ArcGIS Pro. Last, we need to insert an authorship block. In the ribbon bar, we're going to go to insert and then rectangle text. It's this thing right here. Click that, click somewhere inside of here. See that it has text right here, and we see that something occurred in here. If we double click that, we'll see that we're able to edit that text just as we could for our title. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert your authorship. We'll go author Phillips. Date created 13/32 21. What am I doing here? I'm just making up a date that doesn't exist. And then this map created for your, I believe this is, well, the regular class is 3,500. We'll use that. Yours is 50 something or other. But so whichever class you're in, we'll pretend this is 3,500. 3,500. Or 5510. Week 3 lab. Period. We'll go back to the table of contents and we'll see that that shows up over here. We can drag this to read however we want it to read. We can drag that out like that. I'm going to vent there, make it look better like that so that it looks like a block of text rather than these trailing edges right here. Go ahead and click off of that. Hey, look at that. Got a giant block right here. I'm going to bring in the edges of that. Okay, so now we've got an authorship block created. However, when we click off of it, that square around it disappears. We're going to learn how to keep that next. We're going to double click it, show its properties. Basically the same thing that you had over here when you were editing your text. Let's see here. I'm trying to go along with the instruction for you here. Next to the word text, top of the frame, we're going to click that, go to border. We're going to click, hold on, I'm trying to read here. Click the middle button, it looks like a section of layers. You don't necessarily have to do that, but it's a good idea. We'll click on this color chip right here, we'll change the color to black. The offset effect is going to go to 2 point. If you didn't have an offset, it will create a block strictly around the letters. It doesn't look all that great. And that's why we click on this set of layers here, because that offset effect doesn't happen. So we're going to click on this. We're going to get a 2 point offset, 1 point width, black. We'll go ahead and hit apply and see how that looks. Looks fine. If we had not done an offset, this line here would be right up against the text. There'd be no breathing room between your text, and it'd be difficult to read. Okay, so now we're going to arrange our map elements. This should be kind of in the center of your parking map here. This looks a little off center. It's kind of weird looking. But in theory, I mean, it's you could, I guess, move this off a little bit and center that up a little bit better. See if I can get this to work here. There we go. Almost. There we go. That's a little better. So basically, you just want to make things, kind of center things up on here, align what you can. This should be kind of centered in the middle of this. This should make a centered block. That away just a hair. Move this away just a little bit. Yeah. Center it up. You could select all three of these if you wanted and move them all over where they match up with that line to the outside. We'll move our legend over, uh, kind of center it up top to bottom between the bottom edge of this and the bottom edge of this. Basically, just look for some, about an equal amount of space above and below it. That's pretty much it for adding all this. We've got our title, north arrow, scale bar, legend, authorship block. And it only took us an hour. You'll get better with this, I promise. Um, okay, so we're going to move on to the last section and then we're done for the day. The fourth section here is setting the print options. Before you send the map to print or to share it, you should check your page setup options and preview the map. It's good practice to check the overall composition of your layout. That's what we just did. Your map is almost ready. You're going to preview it and then send it to a printer. Or what we're going to do here is we're just going to save off a file. We're not going to print it. Save it. We're going to upload that. So on our menu bar, we're going to hit share, and then we're going to hit layout under the export section here. So we're going to hit layout. You can export to lots of different file types, as you can see here. I mean, some weird Targa and SVGs. I think that stands for scalar vector graphics, something along those lines, bitmap. For this class, we're going to be dealing with JPEGs. Usually, you'll do them as a JPEG or a PDF. So we're going to change the file type to JPEG. And then we're going to choose where this is going. My kid's screaming in the background. Hope you guys can't hear that. I'm going to export this to a specific area. So I'm going to go into my name here, enter the GIS. This is going to go in a labs folder. This is lab 3, and we're just going to call this UNT map JPEG. We'll hit save. That doesn't save it yet. That just shows how we want to save the name and where we want to save it. Don't worry about your quality over here. Change your resolution to 300. 300 dpi is typically high resolution. I could go into all the specifics of what DPIs mean, but I'm not going to. For this class, all of our instruction is going to be exported out at 300 DPI. That's going to give those of us who review your work a clear image to be able to examine. When we're done with all of these settings, we're going to go ahead and export. And it's going to export to the folder that you specified here. So this is going into my labs folder in lab 3, untmap.jpg. When it's complete, you'll see export completed right here. From here, all you really want to do is just go in and locate that file. See if I can locate it here real quick. Bring my window over here. We said this was lab 3. There's UNT map right there. Easy to find. So this is what you're going to upload for this week's deliverable. You can double click the file to open it, take a look at it, make sure it exported correctly. You'll want to do that to make sure it appears, it exported correctly and it appears how you want it to appear. And so that's it. You're finished with maps and page layout. You will submit that JPEG to your assignment in Canvas. Not too much else to talk about here. You'll get better at this as time goes on. Just allow yourself some time to be able to work and think. If you have questions, I am generally, in the afternoons, I am available in the group me. I usually ask that people don't try to get a hold of me on Canvas. You can email me if you like. You can you can try to get a hold of me at Canvas, but the fastest way to be able to get a hold of me is through GroupMe. I get all those alerts on my phone. So even if I'm on campus and away from a computer or something like that, if I'm out shopping or whatever, I will at least answer you and try to answer your question. Many times I can answer your question, um, just off the cuff, unless it takes some instruction where I need to go in and show you what needs to be done. But anyway, as always, please get a hold of me if any of this doesn't make any sense. Please get in touch, and I promise you, we will work out your issues.